Hey gang, Zippo. Let's talk steering. I get a lot of questions about steering on these things and how you can improve your steering, how do you adjust the steering, so on and so forth. People have crooked steering wheels, this, that, and the other thing. So this may be a one part, it may be a two part. We'll find out in the end just how many parts it is, so I want to keep these relatively short. So I'm going to show you the basic components that go into the steering. First and foremost, the axle, the front axle. Then your kingpin spindles that your kingpins go into, the kingpins themselves, and the bearings on the wheels. Okay, now I do the power steering, the poor man's power steering thing on mine, but you don't have to. They were born from the factory with thrust washers on the top and bottom. You put the thrust washers in and all that, and as long as you keep everything greased up, you should be good. So just because I like you guys so much, I'm gonna tear this Squire apart, get all the parts up on a bench so I can show them to you up close and personal. So hang on just a second. Man, that was a lot of work. Okay, so what do we got? Well, a lot of key points for a lot of things on this. So I'm going to get the camera set up and we'll continue this. Hang on. Alright gang, here we go. Things are going to be upside down, maybe. If I turn this around, it won't be. This sits in your tractor just like that. This goes into a piece of angle iron under the frame. This is a very crucial grease point. You can see the wear that's in that. This one's got very little wear. I've seen some of them where I've actually had to just, fill the entire thing in and totally redo them. Hang on, let me grab something real quick. I'll show you guys a trick. Okay, this little dealio right here. That's a set collar that's used on all of these tractors in a number of different places. You can just take your set screw out on that angle iron on the hole. You can weld this to that to give that much more thickness so that you don't have as much wear here. And it's a very nice fit, and that will help prolong your axle for a very, very, very long time. So like I say, and in later models, they actually did this. They welded one of these onto the angle iron so that there was a larger contact patch there. But grease that area up really well. These are your two hitch points, front and back, front and back. Here's your axle pivot, and a lot of people ask, what's this hole? That hole is a shipping hole. It just had a bolt through it to keep the tractor flat and level and on its crate, on its pallet. That's all it is. It's a shipping hole. Some axles have them, some don't. It just depends. I've had dozens of these tractors and there's no rhyme or reason. I have 264s right now. One has it, one doesn't. 264 landlords. My B10, Ugly Alice, has them. Both of them. But anyway, let's see. The old Squire's got one, but I've had a number of tractors that do not have that hole. All right, let's get on to your steering action. Okay, your steering rod, and I don't believe I've got one handy. Hang on, let me look. Be right back. Okay, here's the entire ugly assembly right here. Here we go. And here's one that's wore out pretty good. You can see the wear that's on the Y there. All right. Your tie rod, I think I called it, I don't remember what I called it, but your tie rod. These just have spacers on them. Kind of like a shoulder bolt, only not a shoulder bolt. It's got its own little spacer. You have a bolt and a washer and a spacer and then another nut. You can tighten those down as tight as you want to tighten them. That is thicker than this. And that goes right inside that hole. If I can get it in the view, goes right inside that hole there. just keep those oiled. Keep them oiled well. You can see this axle has been run through the wringer. It's missing one spindle that's on Ugly Allis because I broke a spindle on Ugly Allis. Still has the weight block on it, and the weight block is also where your pivot is for your axle. You can see right here. You want to keep that oiled really well. I need to adjust the angle on that camera just a little bit because I keep getting almost out of view there. Hang on a second here. That's a little better. Alright. And I'm wearing gloves because all this stuff is filthy. Anyway. On your spindles, down inside your spindles, get a flashlight. There are bushings in there. And those bushings can be replaced, and you should replace them so that you can reduce the wear on your spindle itself. Now if you take these apart to put the power steering and whatnot in there, you want to inspect these really well and really close, and you're looking for grooves wore into them. If there's grooves wore into them, they need to be built up. You can build them up with JB Weld and then sand them down. You can build them up with steel stick, sand them down. You can weld them up and sand them down, grind them down, whatever. But the best way to help prevent that from happening are these grease zerks right here. Grease is cheap. Pump grease in these things constantly. Kingpins will run themselves dry. Your steering it'll get tough to steer on your steering wheel. And a lot of that is just attributed to improper maintenance. So keep those greased. I'm going to set this back down out of the way. I'm going to go on to the next parts of the tractor. Get all the dirt off. Alright, now we have our drag link, our front steering arm, and our large gear. This is what makes the thing steer. Alright, it's not all going to fit in one picture. This is what, when you turn your steering wheel, this gear, now you may have a one-piece unit where both gears are together. If so, it has a nut on the end of it. You can loosen that nut and actually rotate your gear to set your lash between the two gears. And with these, you just loosen all 6 nuts. 3 nuts hold this gear on, 3 nuts hold this gear on, and take a piece of paper, regular ordinary writing paper, put it between the gears and tighten everything down. That properly sets your lash on your gears. And another thing, these have grease zerks that's underneath of your tractor. I will show you really quick here. Underneath the tractor, and they both have grease zerks. So you're going to want to be sure that you keep those greased. Let me get the camera set back up here. It's going to take me a second. There we go. Alright. So what that grease does, it gets in there and it allows these two parts to move freely. These are neglected a lot also. Don't neglect these. You've got to keep everything on these tractors greased up. They're 50 years old. If not 50, they're approaching 50. There's also grease zerk on the one-piece gears. And I don't have one out right now. We're just working on the older 2-piece gears. Now, say your tractor's all together and you're steering right along, but your aviator wheel is like this, but you're going straight. How do you straighten that out? How do you get your steering wheel straight when you're riding straight with the tractor? The drag link. The drag link is adjustable. Fully adjustable. Just took the nut and the bolt out. Okay, take a look. See that cotter pin? You pop that cotter pin out and there's a crisscross in there. Use a flat blade screwdriver. You can back that out, take this out, clean everything up, pack it with more grease, put this back in, tighten it as tight as, kind of like you're doing a wheel bearing, tighten it as tight as you can go, and then back it off to the next spot. And there are holes, they're kind of hard to see because they're dirty. There are holes all the way around that for you to line up your ball. So how do you set your length? Well, they've both got nuts on either end. You'll have to take one end or the other off and either make it longer or make it shorter to pull or push your steering wheel into the correct position. It's just as simple as that. And while you're doing that, you may as well pop everything apart, clean it up, and grease those ends. They just thread in just like a screw. I've never seen one go bad. As long as you have, as long as you maintain them, they're going to survive. They're going to be just fine. Now we're going to come back over here to this gear. This gear has kind of like a universal joint knuckle on it. See me moving it there? It's a good idea to keep all of this greased real well as also. And they're behind the panels. You're going to have to, when you do maintenance, you're going to have to do some work. But that work's going to pay off in the end. Tight steering is mostly attributed to this gear being tight and this gear being tight. Now, say you get everything in alignment and everything is peachy. You got your steering wheel where you want it, but you've got a lot of play before you start steering in any one direction. What causes that? This piece right here. This causes that. There are two set screws, a set screw here and a set screw there. If those set screws get worn, and I've talked about worn set screws before, you've got to make sure they have a good sharp edge on them. If they get worn, you can tighten these things till next Tuesday and it's going to keep working itself loose on you. Put new set screws in. Don't just put a bolt in there. A bolt isn't going to cut it. I'm going to grab a set screw and show you guys again. Okay, I grabbed a bad one and a good one, and I just grabbed big ones. You see how this is cupped? It's got a recess in there. That bitter edge right there is what bites into the metal on these. Bites into the metal and holds things in place. It bites into the keyway and it bites into the side of the steering gear shaft. If you pull it out and it does not look like that, if it looks more like that, all flattened out, you can resharpen these on a snag grinder. Just do a 45-degree bevel on it and just keep rolling it around, roll it around, and get that sharp again. Then you can reuse it, but I don't recommend it. If you don't have any, as a last resort, sharpen the ones that you've got. And they've got to be sharp enough, like I say, to bite into the metal that you're tightening them down onto. Case in point, most of the time when you're turning your steering and the steering wheel moves a lot before you finally start steering is because of this right here. And that's underneath the tractor where I showed you. That's what the drag link is attached to, that goes to the front of the tractor. So, and I've been doing this entire video upside down. My screen is showing everything upside down, so I just moved it and now I can see. Okay, so, but you've got your grease zerk, make sure you grease them. You will also get play up here, the same as you will in the back, on the one I just showed you. Make sure that these set screws have a good sharp edge on them. A good sharp edge. Okay, where'd you go? There you are. See the nice edge on that? You want it to bite into the metal that you're attaching it to. And just real quick before I end this, and I'm just going to go ahead and post the whole thing at once. People have told me when they go to put their poor man's power steering in, that's the thrust washers and needle bearings, that they don't have room to put the top on. either, where's it at? I know it's on this axle that's down here on the floor. Okay. See that C-clip that's on there? They don't have room to get that C-clip on because their stack up is too tall. That's very easy to remedy. Take your axle. Oh, let me get this stuff out of there. Take your axle. This is the top of your axle, okay? And the side that you need to put that C-clip on, the spindle, grind this down. Just grind it down flat. Grind it down enough until when you put that spindle in there, you can get the C-clip on. You're not going to hurt anything. There's a lot of meat there. And another thing is, make sure that if you take everything apart, that this is a good flat surface here. And you can see that bushing in there. You can see this one too. You can see those bushings in there. And they are replaceable. You just knock them out, press new ones in, you're off and running to the races. So that should just about cover everything that you would need to know on maintaining and correcting the steering on these older tractors. If anybody has any questions, any problems, go ask somebody else. You guys know I'm kidding. Alright, that's it. Here's your tutorial for the day. This is Zippo. Later. Bye.